Can you talk about the social awareness that you're bringing to every single thing? And, before we even get to that, let's just put a pin in that for a second. You are progressive in a very rural, deep South. I mean, clearly you're not from the Bronx. I know that you had a gay uncle
Yeah.
that you love and you're very close with. Talk about where sort of that progressive, or how you're not the super conservative, most people would think in the deep South. Most people think are ultra conservative. You're not
Yeah.
that way. Where did that sort of come from?
A couple of things. I used to pretty much entirely chalk it up to my gay uncle who you mentioned, because like when I was a kid, my mom wasn't around really. My dad raised me and my sister mostly, and my dad had only one sibling, his little brother, my Uncle Tim, and my Uncle Tim is an openly gay man. And him and my dad were very close. My Uncle Tim and my Uncle Mike, his partner, were there for every Thanksgiving, and they were around all the time. They come over every Sunday, watch the Titans games and all that stuff. So I grew up with that and loved them both dearly, and also didn't even really know that people had. My dad had told me when I got a little older, he's like, listen, you're probably going to start hearing things about your uncle and, stuff like that. And I did. But also the biggest thing that I attributed it to in relation to that is because of that, I assume directly related to that. My dad didn't make us go to church. He didn't go to church. We didn't go to church at all. Most people there grow up in the church at least a little bit, but I grew up pretty much completely religious, really. And I've always thought that had a lot to do with it. However, I've since met a lot of other people, including the two guys I tour with, Corey and Drew, who are very similar. They're also progressive, deep Southerners, and they grew up heavily in the church, and they credit that with their, because it pushed them in the other direction. You know what I mean? So it can go both,
Oh,
it can
okay.
go both ways, I guess. But for me, I grew up completely outside the church. I was very defensive about my uncle. People would say things. I got called homophobic slurs and stuff like that. Not just for having a gay uncle, but just for reading books and stuff. For being
Wait,
a smart
what?
kid. Oh yeah, yeah. I was like, I got mocked
Help me
a lot.
understand that.
I just I don't know. Reading books is just not cool. But yeah, and my name rhymes with gay. I have a gay uncle. All that stuff just sort of came together in a perfect storm of being called a queer, pretty much. This part's super wild to people, but it's true. First of all, my accent is
What's that?
way thinner now than it used to be. It used to be much thicker when I first lived in and left my hometown. But also,
Right.
when my accent was thicker, I got made fun of as a kid for talking proper, mostly because I use big words and stuff. But like I'm saying, I got mocked for talking like a city boy or something, because a lot of people in my hometown literally talk like this. Like that's how thick their accent is. And I'm not even trying to
Okay.
make fun of them. They're just, a lot of them
I know.
really do talk like that. But also, I was the smart kid and I made really good grades. So I was extremely confident that I was smarter than all these people. I'm not anywhere near as smart as I thought I was at the time. But
Okay.
because of that, I never had any thoughts of like, oh, well, maybe they're right about all this stuff, about
Ah,
about
okay.
God or about gays or about any of it. I never ever thought like, oh, I wonder if maybe I'm mistaken. All these other people, it wasn't everybody, but just the general
Right. I
sense of
understand.
everybody's like on the other side of this for me. Maybe that means I'm wrong. I never had that because I was like, no, I'm smarter than all of them. So of course I'm right.
So you were steamrolling over all of them,
Yes.
pretty
Well, I
much.
mean, I thought, I felt like I wasn't making much
Yeah.
of an impact. But also, I'd have to admit, I don't even know that it's as complicated as that, because I mentioned my dad, but not just my dad and my uncle, but also their parents. And I don't think it's because they had a gay son either. They were all Democrats. When I was a kid, they all voted
Oh,
for Clinton and Al Gore and everything. And my grandpa died in 2004, but the rest of them voted for Kerry and then Obama. So I was honestly kind of raised this way, which is odd because most of the other Southern progressives I know, like my wife and the guys I tour with, I mentioned earlier, they're all kind of the blue sheep of their family.
right.
You know what I mean? And most of the
Right.
people I meet at my shows are the blue sheep of their family. And I almost
Ah,
feel bad sometimes because those people will ask me at shows, they'll be like, can you give me some advice on how to deal with my family at Thanksgiving or whatever? You know what I mean?
right.
And I just, I don't really have to do that because I have a very small family and every single one of them is on the same page as me politically.
Right.
Like my 84-year-old Mama will not shut up about how much she hates Donald Trump, even now, years after him leaving office. She just can't stand him,
Right.
can't stand the sight of him or thinking of him or anything like that. So, yeah, it came very, very naturally to me, but I was super aware that it was different or not the standard. Last thing I do want to stress, however, I had plenty of friends, the guys that I'm still close with today, even back then
Mhm.
growing up, who they weren't as politically aware or cared about politics as much, but who were much more like me than the opposite. Not religious,
Okay.
not racist, totally fine with gay people. And now most of them, as far as politics goes, are lean left as well. So I wasn't a unicorn, even in
Gotcha.
my hometown. I wasn't the only one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you were basically the only one that was speaking out in the way that you do,
Yeah, that
and
that
being
part is
very
true.
pointed about it.
We're a very small school. We didn't have like a debate class. So like one day a month, the English class would become debate class just so we could do some debate stuff. And I remember one of those days, the subject was going to be the war in Iraq. We hadn't gone into Iraq yet. They were pitching all the WMD stuff and it was all over the news. And the teacher was like, all right, everybody who thinks we should go to war in Iraq, raise your hand. And about half the kids raised their hand. And she was like, okay, you guys are on this side of the room. Now everybody who thinks we shouldn't go to war with Iraq, raise your hand. And it was literally just me. I was the only one. And she was like, okay, what about anybody who doesn't have an opinion or doesn't know what we should do? And then that was the other half of the students, and she was like, okay, you guys are with Trae on this side of the room. But I was, the only one who said no. And I remember getting so frustrated during that whole experience because the people on, the kids on the other side were all, they just kept bringing up 9/11 and stuff. And they were like, they
Right.
attacked us. They got it coming, that type of thing. And just wanting to pull my hair out, even then over not being able to get these people to see the
Right.
reality or the truth of the matter. You know what I mean? And that whole
Right.
dynamic has only gotten a million
Worse.
times worse in the
Yeah.
intervening years. But I mean, yeah, I was never ever shy about speaking my mind about that type of stuff.